Hello, I'm Davis.
And I'm Cassidy.
And today we will be talking about the leakage of the oil wells in Summerland. Summerland has a rich history that's really heavily connected to oil. In fact, the whole coastline of Southern California is known for its abundance of natural seepages of oil and gas. For example, look at the La Brea tar pits in southern Los Angeles, downtown area. When Native Americans dominated the southern coastline of California, they'd use these natural seepages as a natural adhesive. They'd use it to block holes in the bottom of their boats or make watertight containers.
As time passed, white settlers began to move into this land. As a result, a small community started to grow in what is now called Summerland. People who lived there claimed that the air often smelled like oil and that natural seeps dotted the coastline. In the year 1897, drilling rigs scattered the beach of Summerland, and the first pier holding a well was constructed. This was perhaps the world's first well brought in over water. So much oil was formed that oil rigs and piers to hold them over the water were built.
These are the oil wells in Summerland around the early 1900s. Since then, oil platforms have been built all along the coast of Summerland and other places, and the really close to shore oil wells have been shut down. Right now, in 2015, most of the oil wells are offshore like that. Recently, these capped oil wells have been leaking. Not only is this an inconvenience to the people who live here and won't come to this beach for fun, but also really affects the marine life in the area. The Heal the Ocean campaign has raised $46,000 to cover staff time and help fix the damage done to the beach. Citizens of Summerland have been complaining and raising awareness of the issue.
Some people think that a little bit of oil spill is not a huge problem, but in August this year, this beach had to be closed for 3 days. In addition to this, a multitude of animal species could be negatively affected by the oil leakage. Since oil floats, animals that interact or inhabit the ocean surface are heavily affected, along with those animals who are directly affected by the oil and tar collects on Summerland beaches.
As you can see here, the high tide from last night has pushed oil up onto the beach and stained a line all across. Sea otters spend most of their lives on the surface of the water. This means that when oil leaks, they're the first to be hit hard. Other aquatic animals, like dolphins and whales, need to come to the surface to breathe. When they come to breathe, their blowholes may be clogged with oil, which can make it hard to breathe or even cause death.
One group of animals that are most heavily affected are seabirds. Seabirds often have a strict diet of fish, and in order to get the fish, they must dive through the surface with their mouths open to capture fish in their beaks. Diving into the water with its beak open can easily cause a bird to ingest oil, which can have significant negative effects on the bird. If the bird is lucky enough not to swallow the deadly substance, then it is still probably coated in it. If a bird is coated in oil, then it can be restricted from flying, which is essential to its survival. Lastly, birds are known to abandon their egg-filled nests if tar becomes a problem.
Things we really learned from our first interview was that there are actually positive effects to mainly natural seepage of oil. Some bacteria and fungi have adapted to live there and thrive there, and taking oil out of the area can have very negative effects on their population. We believe that the best solution to permanently end this problem is to go back and reseal these wells with materials that are stronger and more durable. Heal the Ocean actually suggests that people who have negatively contributed to this problem go back and pay for the cleaning of this area.
So I'm Lee Heller. I'm a longtime resident of Summerland, and I've been working on the issue of oil pollution at Summerland Beach for about 3 or 4 years.
How serious of an issue do you think this is?
Well, it's pretty serious. Right now things are pretty good, but there was a period where there was so much oil on the beach that at one point they actually closed it because you could actually see pools of oil and oil in the water. And you can see the signs here that they put up to warn people that it really was not safe to go down there. And they did even close it for about 3 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
Okay, and is there any way that the majority of the oil comes from natural seepage, or is it just the wells?
It's probably a combination of both wells and natural seepage, and it's kind of hard to tell, short of, well really it would be hard in general, because even if you took samples, if both kinds of oil were coming from the same area, it would look the same, and you wouldn't know if it came from natural seeps or from man-made.
How difficult would it be to cap all the wells to fix this problem?
That would be a pretty big challenge. So there were over 400 wells drilled here in the late 19th and late 19th and early 20th centuries. and some of them were capped pretty poorly. There are some known ones, and others probably were never even mapped. And there are those like the Becker wellhead, which is right offshore here, which is what is currently being focused on to be capped or re-abandoned is the technical term. But there are others like the Treadwell, which is further down that way, which is a quarter of a mile offshore, so it would take more money and more extensive equipment. And there's also concern that some of these wells were drilled into earthquake fault lines, so they're just not sure that they can cap them.
And what measures are being taken right now to solve it?
Well, not much is happening right now. The State Lands Commission is the state agency that's responsible for this, because all the oil companies that drill these wells have long since gone out of business, so we can't go to them and make them fix the problem. So the State Lands Commission came out here in October when the tide was very low and very far out, and they dug up the one wellhead that's been seen to be leaking. So at very, very low tides, when the water's out far enough, you could actually see this pipe sticking up out of the sand with oil coming out of it. So they dug it up, they saw the oil coming out of it, they marked it, so they'd be easy to find again in the future, and then they cleaned up their act because that's all they had the money for. So the next step is to get a review for the environmental impacts of fixing it. There's a state law called CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, and you have to do a CEQA review of any project that might have an environmental impact, and that's supposed to be maybe $250,000. And then once they do that, they also need the money to actually fix it, and that could be anywhere from $800,000 to $1.5 million.
So I read online that it's Heal the Ocean, and they're trying to raise a portion of money. How far along are they? Do you know?
Heal the Ocean is actually working on a grant from the Ocean Protection Council, which is a state fund, and they are in the process of submitting the grant. The deadline, I think, is any day now. And so that will, they hope, raise them the money that they need. They're also hoping that the state will kick in some money. So our two state legislators, Assemblymember Doss Williams and Senator Hannah-Beth Jackson, are also trying to get the state to find some funds to help fix it. So it's a little bit of ways yet before we have the money that we need.
And are there any preventable measures we can do to mitigate the problem?
You know, not really. I mean, what do you do with the wells that are leaking except close them? There's really nothing short of that you can do, at least that I'm aware of.
I think I have a quick question. What does it entail to cap a well? What's the process and stuff for that?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer to, because I'm not an engineer. I know that there is an engineering plan that has to be done, and that has been funded. So I think they are working on that at the State Lands Commission. If it were to Sunday and your homework wasn't due tomorrow, I would refer you to people that you could ask that question to and get a better answer, not me. So I don't know. I can tell you that in the old days, part of why they did it wrong was they would just take rocks and cement and old telephone poles and shove them down, and that was their idea of capping some of these wells. So they need to obviously do whatever the technology is that'll put a permanent cap on that will prevent it from leaking again, at least for a while.
Thank you. That's all.
That's all. You guys are the easiest ever.
Thank you so.
The only limitations to these solutions are lack of funding. We would also need more support from the community.
Welcome to Summerland.